Door knocking for real estate agents is without question one of the best ways to generate immediate seller leads, and I crushed it with door knocking as a new agent, where 50% of my listings in my first year came from door knocking, and the trickle effect of following up and following the process that I'm going to show you today, 50% of my listings in my second year came from door knocking. And the problem is a lot of people don't have the right scripts, don't know where to target, don't have the right follow-up strategy, and aren't taking a modern approach. So today, I'm going to give you my blueprint of exactly how to crush it with door knocking going forward and get immediate seller leads today. What's up, guys? If you don't know who I am, my name is Mike Sherrard, and I train thousands of agents every single year on how to scale their business the modern way using social media strategies, and I'm with eXp Realty. But a lot of my business in my first year came from door knocking. And a lot of people have been able to use my script that I'm going to go through today in order to get incredible results, because I see a lot of the scripts out there, and to be completely honest, they suck. They might seem theoretically good, but if you put them into practice, it's literally going to push everybody away, which is usually what happens. And that's why people come to me asking why they're not getting the right results with door knocking. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be diving into the location of where you should be door knocking. We're going to be going into my script of how to actually initiate the conversation. Then we're going to dive into the follow-up structure of what I did in order to convert those door knocking leads, and then my modern strategy, which crushed it. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So diving into the first thing, which is location. Where should you be door knocking? How do you know where you should go hit the doors? And how do you know what's going to get you the best results? So I looked at two specific pieces of criteria here when you start looking at it, which 1, 2. And when I looked at number 1, it was close to me. Which communities are close to you that you want to be farming that are within the general vicinity of your area, or an area that you grew up in or are familiar with, or you just want to break into. So looking at where it's close is really good, just because again, it makes it easier to save time. Time's the most precious commodity out there. If you don't have to drive 20-30 minutes to get to the places you want to door knock, then you're going to be able to hit more doors because you're not wasting time driving to and from it. Now, the more important aspect of it is looking at turnover. And what I mean by this is when you look at the communities that I chose to door knock, it was close to me, and I chose 3 specific communities that were within the general vicinity of a 5-10 minute drive, but all of them have massive turnover, because what happens is when you looked at the average price point, it ranged anywhere from 500K to about 2 million. If you were looking at the lake houses in those communities. And what happens is there was such high volume of turnover of sales and purchases in these areas because they were great middle-class communities that were blue collar. It was a price point that a lot of people could buy their first home. They could move up, they could move down, they could move laterally, they could move between communities, and everybody stayed within that general vicinity or wanted to get into that area. And that means that there was a ton of constant sales. So when I started looking at where should I be door knocking, I wanted to pick the areas that there was a lot of volume going on, which would give me a better opportunity to increase my conversion rate when I was door knocking, because a lot of people were looking to make decisions to move. Now, when we look at how I would approach the specific streets, that's a completely different section, which we'll talk about in the scripting. Now, a lot of people say, well, Mike, I want to get into like a luxury area, right? So they want to get into luxury. And this is something that you can do in due time. But I do recommend starting with an area with higher turnover, because with the luxury areas, your communication skills matter drastically. So if you haven't built up the communication skills, the objection handling, and the scripting, and the confidence to door knock a middle-class neighborhood, then I certainly don't recommend going straight to a luxury neighborhood where people have higher expectations. Now, when you start looking at how to dress, for example, I would always dress based on the area that I was door knocking. So when I started door knocking in these areas that were very middle class, very, average family that are, working class people, I would wear a polo and I would wear a nice pair of dress pants, and I'd wear a pair of sneakers because you don't want to kill your feet when you're out door knocking. Whereas when I started door knocking the luxury communities, I would dress up in a full suit because I would want to look the part of the people that I was trying to align with. Whereas if I wore a suit in the average communities, it might push people away and seem too much or too over the top and not relatable to them. And if I dressed underdressed in terms of the luxury communities, they might think that I'm not up to, the standards that they uphold for themselves. So that's how I started looking at the location. Now, when we look at the script, that will determine how I chose the street that I would door knock. So let me talk about that for a second. Whenever I would go look at a street, what I would do is I would find a home that sold for a high price on a low days on market. And that's how I would use where I should be door knocking. And here's the exact script that I would use, because I see a lot of people that are saying, hey, it's Mike Sherrard with eXp Realty. I was just in the neighborhood wanting to see if you wanted to buy or sell a house. Like, you know, Tom Ferry, Mike Ferry scripts. And to be completely honest, that's not going to work. And if it does, you know, praise to you, but is so salesy, so over the top, so pushy, that I honestly don't know who the heck would actually resonate or communicate with somebody that approaches them that way. So here's the script that I would do, is I would pick this property that was, again, high sale price, low days on market, and I would door knock in the whole street. And whenever I showed up to these properties, what I would do is I'd say, hey, my name is Mike Sherrard with eXp Realty. Don't worry, I'm only going to take a couple seconds here, but if you didn't notice, the property down the street just sold for, you know, $200,000 over asking price within 24 hours. And a number of people in the area have been asking me how that might impact the value of their house. I just wanted to see if this is something that you were curious about and how it might impact the value of your property. And then what I would do, and I'm going to backtrack and I'm going to explain all of this when I go full circle, they would either say, sure, I'm interested, and I would go for a free home evaluation and book an appointment there. Or they would say no, which is common. And if they said no, what I would do is say, hey, no worries, I get it. Now it might not be the right time. I know people have a lot going on right now. But I did just want to let you know that a number of people in the area are using my monthly market report, which you can opt out with one click. And a lot of people find it extremely valuable because it gives you all the information about the sale price of properties, the new listings, the just solds, and what isn't selling, what is selling, and it will just allow you to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your neighborhood. I'd love to know if you'd be okay with me just signing up on that. And again, you can opt out with one signature, but the feedback of it has been great. And that is the magic of the conversion. The problem is a lot of people with door knocking are going straight to, if they don't want to sell today, I'm on to the next door. But the problem is the biggest conversion for me came from my market reports, not the people that said yes to a free home evaluation. So let me unpack that script for a second. Let's look at a couple different things. Number one, when we start looking at how I approach the conversation in terms of, hey, it's Mike Sherrard with eXp Realty. Don't worry, I'm only going to be a couple seconds. So what that did by saying I'm only going to take a couple seconds is it kind of let them loosen up a bit and brought their wall down and their guard down, because now they don't subconsciously think that I'm going to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes wasting their time at their door. So now their guard is down, which is really nice. And then again, I didn't say, do you want to buy or sell, or do you want to sell your house, or are you interested in selling your house? I would just say, leading with value, do you want to know how this might impact the value of your home? Leading with value, not going for the ask, but going for the give. And a lot of people really liked that because it wasn't pushy. And then if they said no, what would happen is, again, I would just lead with the market report, because all that you want to do is you want to get name and email. That is your goal whenever you're door knocking. You might not get the appointment. If you do, that's wonderful. I've got a number of appointments, but the majority of my closed deals and listings from door knocking came from getting names, emails, and going to the market report, okay? And what this would allow me to do is go on to the next step, is looking at how can I follow up with these people, because the magic is in the FU, or the magic is in the follow-up, and that's where the conversion lies. So when we start looking at the follow-up, there's a couple different things that I would do. 1, 2, 3. So number one, every single time I got name, email, and ideally phone number, I would send a personalized email. And I would send this the day I got home from door knocking. And what this would be is, again, I love cars. Cars are my thing. If you don't know, you see my purple Lamborghini, whatever. But if they had a nice car in the driveway, I would compliment on their car when I was at the door, or in my notes, I would write down their car. If they had a kid with them in their arms or whatever, I would write down notes about them, their family, whatever I could take away from their property. And I would use that to my advantage in this personalized email and just say, hey, John, it was so nice to see you. By the way, love the, incredible Corvette that you got in the driveway. I just wanted to say thank you again for your time. I really appreciate you. I know sometimes it's, it takes time out of your day when somebody catches you off guard and comes to your door, but I just want you to know like how much that meant to me to just sit and chat for a second. And by the way, I'm going to set you up on the monthly market report as per your request. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And again, I would write notes about everything I learned about them through the conversation, and I would send a one-off personalized email. The value is in the inconveniences. It is not convenient to send that, but it is extremely valuable. Now, the second thing that I would do is I would then put them into my CRM, because that's what you want to do is, send them in the market report and a drip. So that way they would be followed up and nurtured with, which is where a lot of people go wrong, because now they do their follow-up manually, which is super inefficient and not effective. So put them into CRM is very powerful. And then this is where things get really cool. I would always do a handwritten holiday card, usually around Christmas or whatever the next holiday was. But again, writing down the personal notes that I remember about, a kid that they had, or a vehicle, or some cool feature about their house, or anything that they mentioned during a conversation. And I would write a personalized holiday card for every single person I got the contact information for. So let's look at how I took a modern approach to this as well, which drastically increased conversion. Number one, whenever I was door knocking a community, I would always run Facebook ads to it. Number two, I would always make posts on social media where I would geotag that region, that community. I would use the hashtag and the geotag. So that way, whenever people were searching for the hashtag of that community, or searching for that community itself on Instagram or anything else, my photos would show up and they'd be like, hey, that's the guys that came to my door. Facebook ads. Oh my God, he just came to my door. Now I'm seeing him on social media. And I would take a really interesting modern approach where I would just constantly run ads to the areas that I was door knocking, to the point where people would literally recognize me before I even got to the door. And when I got to the door, they would bring that up. And now it becomes a much more open conversation. So that is how I started approaching door knocking. I did extraordinarily well with it. It worked wonders for me. Again, 50% of my listings in my first year came from it. I didn't door knock after my first 6 months, but because of the follow-up, 50% of my listings in my second year came from the door knocking I did in my first 6 months using this exact strategy. So if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to give you my scripts or anything else. Or if you want to talk about how you can partner with us to help you take it to the next level, feel free to reach out and drop a comment again. So thanks so much for tuning in. As always, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.